Yeah, so that video I sent you yesterday, well, I sent you, I guess, a couple, but the one about the Young Turks covering 9/11, the Tucker
Yeah,
Carlson 9/11,
yeah. We'll take
like,
that. We'll
you
take
know,
those wins.
right, exactly. It's just, I just find it so interesting that all of a sudden, because I feel about the Young Turks a similar way I do about Democracy Now. Like, like I used to like them,
Uh-huh.
um, and now, I don't know. I just haven't liked them in a long time. Um, and I guess I just felt like, like one thing I've always had a problem with, not all the left, but a lot of the left, I don't know, they just like, it's almost like their priority is to like be a good little boy,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
It's like, that's right. I am responsible and rational and reasonable. And in the pursuit of that, it really is a type of conservatism, ironically,
Yeah.
um, which isn't particularly rational or reasonable, but it's just conservatism, meaning there's some older ideas that they really like, and they don't want to mess with them. They're like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Um, and like say someone like a Chomsky, like I like a lot of the stuff or a lot of his work and a lot of what he said, but then on some of the deeper issues, I don't know, let's just say like JFK assassination, like he's horrible, and it's like embarrassing, or like 9/11, it's like embarrassing.
Yeah, where there's like they would probably say, well, probably most everybody would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a free thinker," and da da da, but
Mm-hmm.
like, but not about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Not about that.
It is not
And
about that.
yeah, and I guess if you want to like give them a real benefit of the doubt, which I don't, but if you wanted to, maybe you could say they don't like taking, or there's only certain times or narratives or situations where they're not like where they're willing to make certain logical, like 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, kind of, and then 4 + 4 = 8. But like, what if you skip a step, and you're like 8 + 8 = 16, and then instead of saying 16 + 16 = 32, you just go to 32 + 32 = 64. And it's like, what happened to 16 + 16? And it's kind of like, well, you know, it's like, come on, we know 16 +
Yeah,
16 =
logic
32.
is
And they're like,
logic is
but you
what
didn't,
happened.
yeah, but you didn't do that work, like basically like, like so much of this really comes down to preferable narratives. And if something is in line,
Yes, confirmation bias.
right, confirmation bias, like for example, like if like a white person kills a black person and it's filmed, and and then the white person, I don't know, like says something like, I got that black, or some, I don't know, right? Right? You'd be like, all right, well, that's racist, and right. But in the reverse, you know, they don't really treat it the same, you know? Like if like the simple hypocrisy test is to take, you know, I was walking down the street and someone, stole my bag, and it's like, okay, what if one day you're walking on the street and you steal someone's bag? And it's, oh, that's different.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
I had a good reason, or to steal
Hmm.
their bag or something. But it's like, well, that's the hypocrisy test. Or if I would ask my dad, say in Israel, okay, Dad, so what happened on October 7th, to you justifies what they've done afterwards. Now, what if we reverse that? What if on October 7th,
Hmm.
you know, the Israelis did an attack on, the Palestinians, and then so that would then you'd be cool with the Palestinians, like whatever the count is.
Sure.
Let's say it's whatever, anywhere between 50 to a few hundred to one. Like, would you be okay with that? Like, you're no, oh, you're not. So you have a bias here towards one group based on an identity connection,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and to bring this kind of back to whatever, like a narrative or, like say like the Young Turks thing, like the left has been, I don't know, not all the left. There's some people in the left, like especially like you and I come from the left, and we've been willing to look into 9/11, and that doesn't, maybe it's struck me as weird that whatever. Remember the time when we had that talk with Sunny years ago, and she just made up that Building 7 was still there, and it's just like what, like how we get comfortable with the side we're on with their hypocrisies or their inconsistencies,
Hmm.
and basically a groupthink,
Hmm.
you know, uh, and and I guess it's always been frustrating to me that with 9/11, trying to get someone to just look into it, they're just like, no, like that's crazy talk, and that's nonsense. Um, but now I don't know. I just thought it was like a wonderful indication that they were willing to look into it
Hmm.
and were willing to talk about it and bring up all these weird things that these anomalies that they can't explain and admit back then when it happened they were younger and more or less they're saying they were naive and they trusted whatever the government or official sources, and now they don't as much. And it's like, okay, so thank you, I'm okay. Like, thanks for admitting that, and that
Yeah.
was part of the divide.
Hmm.
It's not so much that I'm crazy or irrational, as much as like, why are you just trusting their word? Like they should prove it to you with more than just trust me, bro.
Right.
And yeah, and so I just thought it was encouraging that they were able to change that stance. And I'm also wondering, like, why? Like, what's happened?
Hmm.
Like, what's changed? Like, is it like, are you losing your audience now? Because I looked in the comments section, and there was like one or two comments that were like, "What are you guys doing covering this conspiracy crap?"
Hmm.
You know, but most of the comments were like, "Duh."
Yeah.
Like, of course, like, but which is just interesting that the majority of the comments on their own video were like, duh, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I like to do that with different, and see what comments are and see, how in tune they are with, the source. And, I don't know, whatever, like Democracy Now, I've seen Democracy Now, like, write these hit pieces, or there's this other site I used to like called Truth Dig,
Hmm.
which is like another leftist, whatever alternative media that say going back to early Trump's first term. Um, they had people like Chris Hedges working for them, who I'm a fan of. No, even though Chris Hedges, when he's been asked about 9/11, he's just not into it.
Hmm.
I remember him once being asked point blank, like, you're into X, Y, and Z. Why won't you look into 9/11? And he'll be like, he said something like, I don't think there are any credible sources, or something along those lines. Yeah, I thought it was kind of a cop out, but whatever. Even though
Also, kind of
if
an
I,
interesting answer. It's kind of interesting.
it is kind of interesting because he's not just saying no. He's
It's like all the sources for information are compromised. I can't find an actual good source on it.
Yeah, or something like
It's
that,
kind of accurate.
whereas I'd be like, if I was the one interviewing, I'd be like, well, bringing up like, well, uh, you've interviewed and you admire Bill Binney, like he has said he thinks there's something there. What do you think about that? And I bring up Michael Parenti. You like Michael Parenti? He thinks there's something there. Those are credible people, incredible sort, and then maybe like I once saw like Tim Dillon interviewing Glenn Greenwald
Mm-hmm.
and asked him the same thing. He's like, you go look into all this stuff. Why haven't you
Yeah.
done work on 9/11? And basically, Glenn Greenwald was like, well, um, I only have so much time, and I focus on X, Y, and Z and not necessarily on that, but not, I don't necessarily focus on that, not because there's nothing there. He's like, I just haven't looked into it. It's not my thing, whatever. He wasn't, but at least he wasn't like, that's all bullshit you know,
Mm-hmm.
he, and I've been waiting for this to, and I don't know that it's going to happen now, but it seems like all of a sudden the 9/11 thing is starting to gain a little, especially past COVID. I think COVID woke a lot of people up. And post COVID, you have a lot of people now willing to re examine things through a different lens, you know.
Yeah, and I
Um,
wasn't going to link it to COVID, but I was going to link it to just amount of time that, when
Passed by.
something big happens, there's like an amount of time before you can start making jokes about it. There's an amount of time before you can
Totally.
just start
Yeah.
having conversations about it. And you're not going to have people just like flip out
Yeah.
for one
Yeah.
reason or the other.
Totally.
So I think we've reached that perhaps we've reached a point in time where it's just not such an immediately inflammatory topic. And you
Yeah.
can start looking at it more, which, you know, is also really convenient for the perpetrators of such a false
Right.
flag attack or something. Because it's
Yeah.
like, well, this is such a huge thing. It's going to take 20 or 30 years before people even calm down enough to start looking into
Yeah.
this. And by that time, maybe I'm dead. Right. Or like,
Right.
or by that time, we will have, you know, covered as many leads as possible or created as, muddied the waters as much as possible, which I think that's something you and I talked about before, is that that's all you really need to do is just muddy the waters and have 10 different storylines out there. Maybe one of them is pretty close to it. But now that you've got 10, you're going to have certain chunks of the population that are interested in that topic. They're going to say it's number two. And the other goes like, obviously it's number four. Oh no, obviously I've looked into this. It's number seven. If you think it's four, you're dumb. You just need a few different storylines, possible storylines to muddy the waters. And you, then people are going to get attached to their own personal theory. You know what I mean? Like how
Yeah.
it's like I'm still attached to Dr. Judy Woods, right? Like that would still, besides like the other, I can't even remember what they were, those other loose change, and
Uh-huh.
there were some
Uh-huh.
other
Uh-huh.
big famous ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
Judy Wood one was the one that always stuck out the most to me. I always felt like most of the other ones did what I was saying, where they're saying we kind of think we know what happened, and we're going to kind of present, here's what we kind of think happened. um though with Dr. Judy Woods, I thought it was her approach of let's just look at all the evidence. Let's just look at all the evidence and go from there. First, just look at it. And I was like, yes, finally, like some
Mm.
sense. Though, am I doing the same thing? It's confirming my bias. I'd prefer for somebody not to jump to conclusions and just kind of look at the evidence first. I don't know, whatever, maybe.
And
But yeah, that's how I look at things. Yeah,
and the Judy Wood thing is interesting because to me, I watched that thing you sent me. What was it, a number of years ago?
yeah, it was a while back.
Um, and I thought it was interesting. It's kind of I came away from it being like, I'm open to it, but I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of her take on how it went down. Um, and I thought, I don't know, I like, say for example, even though I really like Jack Cruz, something I sometimes have a problem with, that I had a problem with Judy Wood, was like when they start attacking
Yeah,
other other people who, and again, if they're going to expose that this person is a fraud or not,
yeah,
who I thought there were, then I appreciate it. But if it's just, I don't know, sometimes it like it comes off not so like when the first time I came across Jack Cruz was on that Danny Jones podcast where
I think me too.
yeah, when he went on to basically debate Cali Means, uh, because Cali Means is the Means siblings, Cali and Casey Means.
Yeah, I don't really know them, I don't think.
Um, so so something that's been happening, like that guy Ian Carroll,
Of course.
right? Which I kind of like Ian
Me
Carroll, like
too.
I'm fine with him, but there are people that have a problem with him because they argue like he came out of nowhere and he's huge now. And I'm like, okay, that is worth going like about, I guess. But that on its
I remember when he wasn't huge and I was following him because he was one of the only people reporting what I felt like was honestly about the GameStop stuff. So
right because
I remember when he was small. I remember when he was small and I was watching him. So I mean, I'm not that that's just my perception, right? I could be
mhm,
totally wrong,
mhm.
but I remember before he was going on other podcasts and stuff like that and just releasing these little videos on X or Twitter or wherever the hell.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember when he was small. I saw him chunk up all the
rise.
time, but that doesn't mean he's not an intelligence asset or something, right? I mean,
And I'm not, yeah, it doesn't. And I'm not saying he isn't intelligent, but I'm just, and I'm bringing him up to say I like him.
me too.
I'm fine with him.
Me
I
too.
don't
And
have a problem with him.
he continues. He hasn't like all of a sudden tried to sell some kind of shampoo that like
Well,
kills the
yeah, yeah.
viruses from
Well,
5G in your
well,
mind or
I don't.
something.
Well,
Okay,
I
awesome.
like he went on. It was because in this past election cycle, he kind of came out big time for Trump. And so a lot of like, or some of the people in like the OG conspiracy movement, for lack of a better term, they kind of got a little annoyed with him. And there's one guy who I definitely like, Derek Bros.
Maybe.
I like Derek Bros. He's really good. By OG, I mean, the post 9/11. There's like the real OGs that have been trying to, blow a whistle like for over 100 years or whatever,
Yeah,
But like 9/11, the post 9/11 kind of movement that popped up that you and I feel like were more, I don't know. That was when I started paying attention. And
yeah,
maybe you were into this stuff before me. I met you after 9/11, so I don't know.
mm,
And I remember you know, meeting you, hang out with you one time at Frau's, and I had that like Eric Von Daniken book, like Chariots of the
sure,
Gods.
sure,
And I was like, "You ever check this out?" And you were like, "Oh, that's a fun book." And we start to, and then I'm like, "Oh, you're into this stuff too." And that was, I don't know. I'm just saying that was like my first time talking to you about stuff like that. Before that, we had just kind of played music,
yeah,
and jammed. Um, but anyway, Derek Bros basically took Ian Carroll to task because Ian Carroll came out big time in support of Trump.
hmm
And so Derek Bros basically, and to Ian Carroll's credit, he was willing to do like a video. You can still find it if you want, where Derek Bros basically kind of has a discussion slash debate with Ian Carroll about Trump
yeah.
and about is Trump against the deep state or is he just another psyop of the deep state?
Well, and are
You know,
there
which
multiple ones, right? Are there black hats, white hats type of thing that's been theorized, right? Are there multiple, who
yeah,
knows?
yeah, and like we were talking about last time, and I'm not sure it got recorded, but we were talking about like it's unfortunately in this game, reality is kind of like a prison where you're in prison, you got to pick a gang. And
Yes,
if you don't have a
exactly right.
gang, you're fucked.
Oh no,
And
yeah.
so Trump clearly is in with the Zionist gang, you know.
And wait,
Um,
you heard about the like thousands of emails between Barack and Epstein, right?
between who and
The former prime minister of Israel,
yeah, yeah. Well,
Ehud
but
Barak or something.
yeah, Ehud Barak. I know he was involved with it. I don't, and I heard about it, but I didn't dive in.
Yeah,
So
they emailed many times. And I'm trying to find it. There's anyway, wait, you should finish what you're saying. I didn't
okay,
mean to go off.
okay. Um, so Ian Carroll with Derek Bros, and Derek Bros was like, and this is something, I've had on occasion I've had interesting conversations with some people that are like really into Trump,
Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, look, Trump is in many ways clearly the lesser of evils of him versus Kamala or him versus Biden or whatever.
yeah.
Um, and I don't like Trump, but in terms of like, I don't know, like you can hope that maybe there might be some ways that he's not only a psyop of the deep state. There, like for example, like he picked RFK Jr., to be the head of HHS, which, you know, I mean, where I am, everyone here is a fucking whatever, shit lib, neolib,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
MSNBC, type. Um, and so you have to pledge allegiance to how, Trump is Hitler, uh, RFK Jr. is worse than Hitler, like this hyperbolic, uh, and RFK Jr. Like, look, I mean, Jack Cruz, for example, is like complained a lot about RFK Jr. and said, because he knows RFK Jr. and he's talked with RFK Jr. Multiple times, and he at first was an RFK Jr. supporter when RFK was running for president, and only became a Trump voter um, when RFK Jr. and RFK Jr.'s
Mm-hmm.
VP pick, Nicole Shanahan, said, "Hey, we're going to join forces with Trump and create the Maha movement."
Yeah.
And it was basically like, so throw your support behind that. And so, and as that when he talked to, and there's an interview with him and RFK Jr. that I was only able to find half of it or a chunk of it,
Okay.
but it was interesting because it was like they're both super intelligent. They're both older, super intelligent, have been looking into this stuff for a long time, before you and I were ever into any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and they've gone really deep down these rabbit holes, and it was like really kind of amazing to hear them like, and he was basically like saying he was like pleasantly surprised at how much RFK Jr. knew and how on the pulse he was. So I think that's part of why he was very disappointed when
Mm-hmm.
Maha became like, basically, Jack is saying, is like basically the COVID vaccines are a bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, they messed up and they got some things wrong. And so, like a video I sent to you yesterday of, that Swedish health minister just collapsing,
Yeah.
you know.
Did they say anything more about that? Have you heard any more?
So,
Anything?
so what they're claiming is she was having low blood sugar,
Okay.
right? Like a plausible
Okay.
deniability,
Okay.
right?
So then
Just like
she's fine today, then, right?
I think she's okay. I think
Okay.
so.
Okay. Then okay.
I think so. And who knows? Maybe it was just blood sugar,
Yeah. Yeah.
like maybe those buildings just fell because a plane hit them. Maybe. What do I know? I'm
Yeah.
not an engineer or whatever. I'm not but then it's like, but wait, building 7 didn't get hit by a plane. So that excuse doesn't work for that. But whatever. I'm saying the times you could within a small window of time, meaning like a four-year window of time, I can't remember this many public officials, public figures, celebrities, comedians, musicians, whatever, like, celebrities that are, well, let's just say they're 1%. They're not like, it's not 100% sample. It's like a tiny segment of the population where you just see them collapsing at a podium or on a football field or on a soccer field or on stage when performing a show, musical show, or a comedian just collapsing, whatever. And now there's just, in this past 4 years, we've just had, there are these tons of these videos, of these
Yeah.
people just collapsing. And we know that, most cases, if not all of these cases, and but I'm open to that some of these cases are not because of the COVID vaccines, you know,
Yeah.
and usually things are some degree of multiple causalities. It's not just one thing. So to say anything is just one thing,
Yeah.
uh, you know, you're leaving yourself open for legitimate criticism.
Yeah.
Um, but but how many people like I know in these past 4 years that a good friend of mine who's my age, who's in really healthy, dropped dead of a heart attack a year ago.
Mm.
You know, I know a number of other people that were either my age or younger that are just dropped dead, or one day we're fine, and then all of a sudden they've got this super aggressive cancer,
Yeah.
you know, or now they have AFib, or now they have myocarditis, or now they have these weird autoimmune issues, or now, all these things that, and someone like Jack Cruz is, I mean, he knows, because I'm not an expert, like, but he's like, look, the shit was a bioweapon. We know what these things are now. There's been enough good research done on this. Just because the peer review process and the corporate media and doesn't give it proper coverage, shouldn't influence us to think one thing is legit and one thing isn't legit. But that's, how most people feel, like that magic trick,
Hmm.
because that's really, like, right, media is a magic trick in that way. It's
Hmm.
it's you're presenting something in a way that is very likely to fool most people who don't know magic. you know, that, oh, look here, I'll take a deck of cards and you pick a card and don't show it, I'll look away, and
Yeah.
okay, and here, I'll guess your card,
Yeah.
and but first I'll pull out a card and be like, is this your card? And you're like, no, that's not. Is this one? It's like, no, it's not. Oh, I guess I messed it up. But oh, what's in your pocket? What do you mean? I don't have anything in my pocket. Just see what's in your pocket. Whoa, that your card? Yeah, how did you get it? Oh my God. It's magic. It's like, no, it's not magic. It's careful, presentation. It's whatever. It's a skill set, you know, and you got to know how to present it and play it in a certain way. And media is like that, and a lot of people that don't understand that, they might be easy marks,
Yeah.
like, uh, or someone like my dad, who it's just like there's just certain things and certain narratives that it's going to be so hard for him to really question it, and maybe he'd be willing on some occasion to look a little bit deeper into one thing or another, but certainly not all of it, just maybe one or two things here or there, you know. But it's like, so it's really, in part, the magic trick is largely about the bias and
Yeah.
creating the bias, the confirmation bias, you know, that, and it's that it's only true if we say it.
Hmm.
And if we don't say it,
Right.
then clearly it's either not true or at best speculative, you
Yes.
know? And most people, it just becomes a religion. it has its own logic in that maybe you're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim, and so you believe in that holy book as opposed to that one. And if this book says it, you believe it, and that one says it, you're like, yeah, whatever, you know. And this game, and how you create this like Democrat Republican thing where there's Republican propaganda and Democrat propaganda, and like, and if the Democrats say something in their propaganda, and the Republicans reflexively will be like, it can't be true,
Right, of course.
and vice versa,
Yes.
you know, because ultimately, if people understood that just we all have much more in common than we have in conflict, then all of a sudden we start setting aside some of those kind of like meager differences, and realize like, wait, we have a commonality here, like the Young Turks, uh, being like, because so that clip I sent you is Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, and Anna Kasparian was somewhat within the past month or two was on Tucker Carlson, went on to Tucker Carlson's show and did like some whatever long form interview, like I don't know, like let's say 1 to 2 hour, 1 to 3 hours or whatever it was. And I remember seeing like, and I was aware, I didn't watch it because I'm not really a fan of hers. Like, whatever. I'm just not the biggest fan of hers, but I remember
Yeah.
seeing like in the comment section of Zero Hedge, uh, someone post that interview of Tucker and Anna Kasparian because they, in Zero Hedge in the comments section, like it's like, they think liberals are just, whatever, the worst thing in the world. And but this guy posted this video and he got a lot of likes, which is an interesting indication.
Hmm.
That it was basically like, hey guys, check this out. Check out Tucker with this liberal, and they're actually like agreeing on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, and it's basically like, guys, like, you know, there's good reason to be cynical for a lot of things, but this actually gives me some hope, you know, like the horseshoe, it's like the real left and the real right, or the populist left and the populist right, like have more in common. And it's this like what quote unquote moderates, quote unquote centrist, which I would argue is that the neoliberal neocon center is the most, in my opinion, far more extremist than the far left or the far right, you know, and that especially since Trump's first term, the left, as I've been saying to you since Trump, that first term of Trump,
Yeah.
like, it just, I don't know what happened to the left. Like something happened where the left just lost their mind and, and just lost their moral compass. And for example, like now you have like this thing that kind of went viral where these liberal women were going on whatever, making these videos on putting them on like TikTok or Twitter or whatever, of like them going to the pharmacy and be like, okay, so RFK is going to try to get rid of the COVID vaccines. Then I'm going to go and just get extra boosters.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I know. It's like so retarded. And it's like, I'm getting extra boosters. And not only are they getting extra boosters and being like, fuck you, you hack, to RFK Jr., they're mocking his speech impediment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You know what I'm saying? Like I remember when Trump was running in 2016 and he like made fun of the handicap guy. And people were like, no, 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 like you cannot do. Yeah, and then these people have, like that Nietzsche line, beware those out to hunt monsters don't become the monsters themselves.
Sure.
And that's clearly what's happened here. Just like with Israel, the Zionists is like once it came from a place of like the Holocaust, the pogroms, and the anti-Semitism, but now it's like clearly they're the monsters now. But they don't understand it. They don't see it that way. They still feel they're the victims, and they're perpetually the victims. And that's why I see, like, I would say it's like the Zionization of the left.
Hmm.
In that, like, it's like when I was talking to, like, part of what led to my disconnect with Jeff a handful of years ago, or
Yeah.
what, 3 or 4 years ago. It was when I was basically saying this about Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, of course, I totally support X, Y, and Z. Like, but this is a political game that they're throwing meat to their base. And this
Yes.
isn't about helping Black people or about helping gay people. This is something else
Yeah.
where it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, you know,
Mm.
where and I feel like Trump is a similar thing. And that's why, I think the people of real integrity, they eventually woke up to this and came out against like the woke nonsense. But it's funny because now the people who are on the right wing, who were so anti woke all this time,
Hmm.
now, since it's like Israel, now it's like right wing woke, you
Yes.
know? And what I would just define that, and I've seen like whatever, like, like I've sent you videos before of like Brett Weinstein. I don't know if I like him. Dark Horse, he's the Dark
Yeah.
Horse guy.
Yeah.
Um, so and I've heard it, because him and his brother, it's just weird because it's like they don't want to touch this issue.
Yeah. I feel when I get a weird feeling from both of those guys, but
Yeah,
I
no,
just get a weird feeling. What can I say?
I do too. I do too. Like, and I like Brett Weinstein more than Eric Weinstein because Eric Weinstein is like, I don't know. He's just such an asshole. He's such like
Mm.
an arrogant asshole. At
Mm.
least Brett Weinstein's not an arrogant asshole, but
Yeah, I
for
think there's
example,
a Professor Dave video where he just like destroys one of them. Their like scientific knowledge. I don't know if you know Professor Dave, but
I don't know Professor Dave.
he's like a science educator, and a lot of his most popular content is him ripping holes in other people's kind of pseudoscientific knowledge. So flat earthers and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And I
Uh-huh.
think
Uh-huh.
he ripped one of those guys a new one. I don't remember whether it was
Okay.
Brett or Eric or something, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I would assume it's Eric. I don't know, but I would assume that just because
Well,
Eric,
I can look it up.
like Brett's just more humble about it. And while uh and Brett was right. I
Oh,
mean,
he's hold on.
what?
Check this out. Hold on 1 second. Brothers in fraudulence. Sean Carroll humiliates Eric Weinstein.
Okay, so
Um,
I watched that Sean Carroll, Eric Weinstein.
Look at all this. Oh my god, this is
Yeah, yeah.
amazing, bro. This is great. This is great. Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, no, exactly. So you see that one with Tucker, and they got like the Israeli flag in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's like, yeah. So let me see. Wait, we'll go to disasters. Go down. Because
Which one? Which
I
one?
should check this guy out.
This
Yeah.
is just Piers
Oh,
Morgan,
oh
but
yeah.
Professor Dave's on there. He's on there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's him. Yeah,
Okay.
he's
Okay.
brutal. He's brutal. There's a couple of just brutal debates he has with flat earthers, and they're just like basically the flat earthers get to the point where like they can't they can't argue back, and they just start being like, "You're so mean,"
Yeah. 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 They just start calling names and ad
and
hominem.
then can I jump on this train? Hold on.
Yeah.
So did you see this? The sold uh Jeffrey sells a fully depreciated and it's blanked out woman to Trump for 22,500, and they've shown that this is on the island here.
Huh.
That's an interesting one. Hold on. Here are the some of the other pages from the birthday book.
Huh.
And here's the actual Donald Trump one. I don't know. Have you seen this one yet?
Yeah,
You've
I
seen that
saw
one.
that one.
Okay. Yeah, here's the sold one. Hold on. And then naked Ghislaine, then a bunch of animals having sex, which is weird. And then I want to try and find there's a bunch of weird math stuff in it. And the physics subreddit noticed that Murray Gell-Mann, I don't know who Lee Smolin is, but Murray Gell-Mann was an amazingly famous physicist. Like Feynman talks about him a lot. Apparently he's in the birthday book. And the Epstein had been funding Gell-Mann for years, which I didn't know about.
Huh.
Um, okay, hold on. Wait. I think it's yeah. There's multiple pages in the book that have all these crazy math
Uh-huh.
equations and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that and these weird diagrams. I couldn't find the other one I was looking at had like Epstein's name and then these different it was like a mathematical philosophy or something.
Uh-huh.
It's very very kind of strange and isn't really like touched upon.
Uh-huh.
Um
Huh.
I'm I kept trying to follow up on that this story because some of it I wonder about. Well, of course, there's the Epstein victims who have come forward, but I wonder about other people that haven't come forward or that have just been silenced or killed. And then
Hmm.
The Whitney Webb stuff. But yeah, I couldn't
Okay.
find the other. There's one other image I wanted to show you where it's not hand drawn. It's like a computer made image, and it was a part of the Epstein book that's slowly being kind of released, the birthday book or whatever. And it
Hmm.
was just very strange math and philosophical ideas and stuff. And so there's multiple of those pages in there. I just thought it was so interesting. It's
Hmm.
not being, of course, the other salacious sex stuff is the stuff that gets picked up on, but the this other strange math, biomedical math stuff that seemed to be
Hmm.
a huge, he was a big investor in the 23andMe,
Oh
like
yeah,
all the
yeah.
DNA
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
information and stuff like that. Just like very interesting.
Well, um,
So I'm trying to find out more about that. Anyway, that's it. I
well,
just wanted to
well,
show you that stuff in case you
yeah,
hadn't
no,
seen it.
that's thank you. Thank you. That was super interesting. And I know that Jack Cruz says that basically Ghislaine Maxwell, the Maxwell family, they dominate, somehow dominate the peer of the of the West, Western science, like the peer review process.
Well, do you know about the Reddit stuff?
No.
There was one of the what was called is it super moderator? I'm not sure. There was so from like Reddit's first existence. Well, there's two things I want to say. One, if you look at the once Reddit has gone public on the stock market, it's only gone up.
Hmm.
And um, when it first came out, and for many years, there was a super moderator in most of the biggest subreddits on Reddit. Um, so, meaning you can choose what stuff gets posted, who gets blocked, whose stuff doesn't get, if you want to remove someone's comment, you can remove it. And there's something like their name was something like Maxwell Hill or something. And they were extraordinarily active up until the day Ghislaine is arrested. And so
Interesting.
everyone thinks it was her.
Huh.
That she was mega, mega involved
Huh.
in Reddit as a super moderator from like the very beginning, which
Huh.
is like a little sus, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And like the other original Reddit guys getting killed or killing themselves or whatever, like
Hmm.
there's some weird stuff. So it seems like maybe, mm, right, the internet, big sites, AI, stuff like that is part of a technological plan that's been long
Yeah.
in the making. That's been long in the making. And
Yeah.
it was understood long ago that this is going to be like really important as you have the more control that you can have over a site like Reddit or something like that. You're going to be able to get so much amazing information about people, be able to control the dialogue that's going on and stuff like that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I find
Hmm.
that so interesting how strange and weird and how there's all these kind of cross connections you wouldn't connect. It's like
Interlocking.
Epstein and Reddit. Like, yep, right there,
Yeah.
boom, like right there.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of them, right? One of her siblings was somehow involved with like
Her
the
sister.
9/11 cover up or
Oh,
investigation. Some,
well, I know something. Yeah, something about her. Oh, I'm just blanking out what it was. Her sister is still like a really well known like academic or something. I can't. I'm blanking on it right now. I too much in my brain. But yeah, there's something up. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
yes,
like,
her dad was like a Mossad super agent. Part of
yeah.
some people's theories is that Epstein is basically like brought in to almost kind of protect her after her dad's like death. And you
And
know
be,
that
well, he's supposed to, I think he's supposed to be the shiny object that everyone looks at in the magic trick and goes,
hmm.
that damn guy,
Yeah, right,
it's
for sure.
him.
For
He,
sure. For sure.
and like think about Trump. Trump is like, he's a sick or whatever,
Yeah.
but then with her, he's like, I wish her the best,
Right.
you know, stuff like that. And whatever, you could, that's just Trump. Maybe it's just Trump being Trump, but like, it's also like interesting because that's why I tell people, I'm like, obviously I don't know what's what, but I more view Ghislaine as the bigger villain than him.
Mm.
She was the pimp. He was like the whore that she was like, yeah, I'll, like, they both work together. Like, I've listened to
For
some
sure. They
different
obviously work
interviews
together very
where,
closely for a long time. Yeah, I
right,
mean,
like,
look, they've got a picture of her topless in the pool with him and stuff like that. We just
yeah,
looked at it. Like, come on. These are people working together,
yeah,
obviously,
no, totally. But she's,
with an unlimited budget. So
mhm.
like, yeah, that's a match made in heaven, right?
And she comes from, okay, so I've been watching. I don't know if I told you last time, but I've been watching that show, The Gilded Age.
Yeah, so is Rachel.
Okay, and it's whatever. It's pretty good. But to me, I'm more interested. I'm like learning things from it. I was like, you know what? I want to watch this more for educational things.
Absolutely.
Like there are things I want to pick up from it,
Hmm.
and I'm doing that. There are ways that it's like you can read, you can do, but it's like you watch a show, and especially one that even though they change up some shit and change some names here and there.
Hold on,
Um,
I'm on video. One second,
all
pause.
right,
What's up, bro? Hi. Do you need anything or are you just coming in here? Okay, cool. I'm just talking with Josh here. Cool. Okay, keep going.
okay. Um, yeah, I think I mentioned it to you a time before. Is like realizing like it's like this super old money, but then they're talking about the opera house, and there's going to be a new opera. They want to build a new opera house.
Hmm.
Oh, these new nouveau riche, these upstarts, these low class nobodies like J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like someone like myself. Sometimes you get so deep in the forest you can't see the trees, and you watch a show like this, and you realize, like, even like J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller at one point, they weren't just allowed entry. They made money and they had a lot of nice big shit, but they weren't necessarily allowed entry to certain social circles,
Hmm.
and penetrating those social circles and, is whatever. It's a strategically relevant part of moving up the ladder of power. And clearly Epstein reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. You know, uh, George Clooney directed it.
I
Came out
don't
maybe,
think
let's say,
so. I
like,
don't think so.
okay, it's actually a good movie. Sam Rockwell is in it. He's great. Whatever. It's this movie that Clooney directed before Clooney just became a fucking jackass, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
and and it was like all about the guy who made the Gong Show. Do you
Hmm.
remember the Gong Show? Have
Sure.
you heard of it? So the guy who made the Gong Show, he wrote a book, and he claims and he says it's legit, but obviously there's no way to really, or I'm unaware if it's confirmed or denied. But he claims that basically the CIA and intelligence services basically, helped him out. They recruited him. And in the movie, you see how he's just some struggling guy that he wants to, like, he's trying to make the show called The Dating Game, and it's
Mm.
not getting picked up, but he's trying, and he's kind of a bit of a loser, for lack of a better word, and he's going to bars and getting drunk and losing in getting his ass kicked in fights. Um, and George Clooney plays like some like CIA intelligence handler who's watching him from afar, and then eventually approaches him and says, "Look, I've been watching you for a while, and you know you have certain qualities that might be helpful for us and the people I represent, and basically like." How about we make a deal? I'll get your show greenlit, your dating game show greenlit, and then on occasion I'll use you as a spy,
Yeah.
and then like trains him. And I'm just making this comparison of he's
Yeah.
like a nobody, and then all of a sudden he gets like chosen by the some people in the intelligence world to be used as some sort of spy or asset or whatever is the correct technical term, where he'll be useful in certain situations. And it seems to be like Epstein was kind of like that, and that Ghislaine Maxwell and the Maxwell family were a family that were more closely, like when I brought up like the elite social circles, they were more in the higher social class, like he was like a super wealthy media mogul, you know, Epstein was nothing,
Yeah.
you know. She brought him along, or whatever, got paired up with him. I don't know if she brought him or whatever, but I'm just saying he was the interloper. He was the nobody that was
Hmm.
allowed entry to this. And I'm sure he probably just had charisma and a certain amount of intelligence, and was wily in certain ways. And they're like, you can be of use to
Yeah.
us, you know? Um, and someone like, Ghislaine Maxwell is just like a useful person to other more powerful
Yeah.
people,
Right.
just as Robert Maxwell was, especially with Israel, is clearly, you know, very, I mean, he was a big supporter, I think, of like in the early stage of creating the state of Israel, bringing weapons, shit like that, when he died, he had like a number of former Israeli heads of state that were at his funeral, things like that are just like an indicator that this guy was with, Israeli intelligence or military intelligence or something like that, and that this was a carryover psyop, or a, you
Mm.
know, where and it's interesting because and it's hard for us little people to wrap our minds around this because we couldn't imagine selling our children, our
Hmm.
beloved children,
Hmm.
into this
Hmm.
and and, and basically, pouring them out, and like because there are these families and these bloodlines and stuff, and these these people like that were basically and I've watched interviews with especially these different older women now who were born into certain families, and then they were sold off by their families, it, to be like a sex slave
Hmm.
and
Yes.
brainwashed into some of this stuff, so us normal people were like, I couldn't imagine doing that.
Yeah.
And so most of us, we can't wrap our minds around that, but that's also part of why, like, we're not running the world.
Yes. Right.
Like, there's a reason why we're on the outside, not at the big boy table.
Yeah. We're
You
not
know,
willing.
yeah, we're not willing to do that type of shit, you know, and you know, I do think that a path to power is the willingness to sacrifice your own people. You know, like that's in fact what a leader, like I guess on some poetic level, that's not what a good leader is. You know,
Right.
but in the reality of power and how power really as it exists now, and maybe someone like yourself or myself would prefer to do it a different way, you know, and we
Hmm.
wouldn't want to do that. Like if we could sell our kid off and then get a seat at a table closer to the big boy table, we wouldn't do it, you know. But that's why we're not going to become a leader in that way, um, because we're not going to be willing to sacrifice our own people. Like when I hear like Jack Cruz talk about the Rothschilds, you know, and working with the royal family of England and the Vatican to help bring the Nazis to power, and talking about that story where Meyer Lansky, you know, that Meyer Lansky tells, where Meyer Lansky, you know, the CIA is using, is working with organized crime and the mafia to secure like the Navy yards and the ports in on the East Coast because the mafia dominated them. Uh, they basically made a deal. I think it's called like Operation Underworld or something like that. And in that process, Meyer Lansky, they won at one point because Nazi spies were infiltrating. So once this or the forerunner of the CIA got in with organized crime, you know, the OSS got in, made this Operation Underworld, and made this, uh, you know, this deal that they captured like 19 Nazi spies and they killed 18 of them, but this one guy that they didn't kill, this guy Kurt Plotkin, he was like a Nazi scientist, and that guy basically said, you know, we're not, our purpose isn't to kill all the Jews, it's to torture them and to use things like mescaline and peyote to torture them and brainwash them to get them to leave our country because we want them out of the country and we want them to go to Palestine.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, so the willingness, you know, to do that, to sacrifice all of your people, you know, um, to achieve this end, you know, like that's something that I wouldn't be willing to do,
Yeah,
you
no way.
know. But that's why I'm not power. Kind of like it, or in Apocalypse Now.
I hear go try flipping it around and stuff. Okay. I gotta help Emery get his
Okay,
charger thing going. 1 second.
okay, sure,
I'll be
sure.
back.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You remember where you're at?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
and I was just gonna make another reference to like Apocalypse Now when he talks about the inoculated babies and then cutting off all those arms of the babies, like the will, right? The will to do that, the will to power to cut off all those arms of these babies, you know,
Yeah.
and and he's like it struck me like a diamond, you know, through the forehead, you know, and it's like that's the type of thing that you know, you can just shortcut straight up the ladder of power, if you're willing to just brutalize and victimize, shitloads of people, especially even faster ways to, are you willing to do that to your own people? You know, because that's what Israel or whatever, like, again, like it's earlier stages, so we haven't seen, but like that's what I'd argue. Things like, in my mind, whether it's Trump, whether it's BLM, whether it's LGBTQ, like these are empire psyops,
Hmm.
that where you want these people to be the leader, the spokesman of this grouping, that you know, if they say A, their group will say A. If they say B, their group will say B, you know? And it's like it's basically like creating a Pied Piper,
Hmm.
you know? And anyone who disagrees with what you're saying, you call them a traitor. You call them conspiracy theorists. You call them whatever. You call them whatever, some bad word, anti-Semite, a racist, whatever. All these words are in service of this empire. You know, and what's the empire? It's ownership of other things, whether it be land, the resources in land, the trade routes, the people on the land, whatever. It's just ownership, like what's slavery? It's owning humans, you know? So slavery is just a part of empire,
Hmm.
Racism is just a part or an aspect of bigotry. It's like, how do you make people, like, how do you take the left through things like Democracy Now, Truth Big, the Young Turks, the New York Times, BLM, LGBTQ. How do you get, and to say, if you disagree with this, you're a traitor, you're part of the enemy.
Hmm.
You're either with us or you're with the terrorists, you
Hmm.
know? And, and those who are willing to question that, they get, know, they usually get destroyed, you know? And someone like, Jack Cruz, he talks about these other scientists and doctors like Robert O. Becker, who he's, usually influenced by, uh, how that, and he met and interviewed Robert O. Becker like a while back. Um, and Robert and Becker said to him, like, look, learn from my mistakes. Like, if you're ever going to go public, like have all of your ducks in a row,
Hmm.
like do it right, like, or don't do it. Cause, if you don't dot a single I or cross a single T, that's all they're going to present you as,
Hmm.
you know? Um, so, but really power is like this big centralized empire power, or the right wingers will call it globalists, you know? And whatever, tomato, tomato, right? Like, I'm fine with that. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. But, uh, you know, like they just want, people to be like, well, it's like watching Game of Thrones. It's like, here's the king. And either you obey the king or the king will kill you or banish you, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just hierarchical structure. We're just talking about hierarchical structure. Are we
Yeah.
saying hierarchical structure exists or it
Yes.
doesn't?
Yes.
If you're saying I'm a conspiracy theorist for trying to talk about hierarchical structure,
Yeah, that's crazy.
like I know that's crazy, you know. Um, but like Israel, and I'm Jewish, so I can say that I can speak about that without being called whatever I'd be called for saying what I'm saying about those other things. If I'm saying it about Trump, then the Trumpers will say I'm a crazy blue haired leftist.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, just the willingness to question everything.
Trying to get blue hair, Josh.
Yeah, right.
Like you got me.
You got me. And like Whitney Webb got into a fight with Brett Weinstein because she was trying to call out some bullshit Trump was doing, and Brett Weinstein descended on her and was like, "You're a black pill person," and was like,
Good luck versus Whitney Webb. Good luck.
I know,
Good luck. I don't think you want to kick that
yeah,
fire ant nest.
I know, I know,
Like, good luck, bro. How is
With-
she still alive? I don't know. Is she
I
a
know,
robot from the future? Maybe.
I, I know, I
It doesn't make sense. Or she's got, or there's some people that are powerful enough that are able to protect her or want to protect her.
Well, that's why there are some that think she's like CIA or something.
Sure, sure. Why not?
Like, why not?
Yeah,
I'm open
why
to
not? I mean,
anything,
if they're like, look, we'll pay you an extra $150,000 a year, and you're just like our informant, or whatever. You can keep doing your job, keep doing whatever. We just may ask you for information, and we'll also add some like security detail to your existence. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, sounds great.
right?
Why not?
Why not?
I gotta go.
Okay, okay.
Awesome talking to you. It always goes
Great
so
talking
fast. My
to you,
gosh.
man.
I'll post it. I'll post it later on today, maybe tonight, and then I'll talk to you next time.
I'll see you next Wednesday.
We'll keep rocking. Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome,
I
man.
don't have anything scheduled, so I'll be ready.
Awesome. And just real quick before you go, you
Yeah.
just said this week and last week you said the doctor. Everything okay?
Yeah, it's just finishing. I had a cyst removed from my shoulder and my back.
Okay.
And so
okay.
I had they did it like in a couple of they did it like steps at a
Installment,
time.
yeah. Okay.
So yeah. And actually I went in today and they didn't need to do anything, so I was able to leave, which was fucking awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Glad to hear that.
Me too.
All
Awesome talking with you. I'll talk to you next time.
right, definitely, man. Great talking to you, Dogon.
Okay. All right.
See you
Bye
later,
bye.
buddy.
Bye.
Bye.